Hello and long time no see. It's me, Jason Wood, the Mad Cleric, and this video is for all the D&D DMs who are out there. Do you ever find yourself wanting to run a game inside a D&D setting that simply does not fit the genre? Maybe you want to try a noir game, maybe you want to try a steampunk game, maybe you want to try a horror game, but for some reason it just doesn't seem to fit within the edition of D&D that you're playing. One of the things that I'm learning as I'm learning first edition AD&D is that not every edition of D&D has the same feel. Not every tone of game are you going to be able to pull off in every edition very easily. And it kind of leaves you asking the question, do I need to be playing a different game altogether? You know, if I want to play a horror setting, do I need to go find something, a whole other set of rules that fits that? Or if I want to play anthropomorphic characters and they're little, do I have to go play Mouse Guard RPG, or can the D&D rule set work well for this? And I think what we're seeing now with 5th edition is that you can retrofit your editions to include other stories, other settings. For example, Lord of the Rings now is being released for 5th edition. But it can be really frustrating if you feel like you need to learn a whole other set of rules just to have a different tone game within the D&D setting. I'm convinced that whatever game you're playing, your choice of game is not deficient. It's just different from the others. You don't have to stop playing 5th edition to have a different tone. You don't have to stop playing 4th edition, believe it or not, and you don't have to stop playing AD&D either. But there are ways that you can glean things from other editions that will help you in your game. Let me give you a great example. So, as you know, I'm reading both of these books right now. The artwork on these two books, so the first edition AD&D, DMG, and then the PHB for 5th edition, the art really says it all. Let's start with first edition. What is this cover telling us? It's telling you that you're going to die. Or the players are, at least. So first of all, look at this poor woman. So this is a player character wearing some form of armor, which really is like less than a bikini. She is flailing, she is helpless, and she's half naked. Meanwhile, the other PCs are cowering down here at the bottom. They're about to get their butts kicked by this Efreet. There is no way that they are going to survive this. And that's how first edition works. I feel like every session we have some PC is dying now. But let's compare this to the 5th edition company. So you've got a giant this time. It's not an Efreet. But you'll notice the woman here is not being grasped. She's not helpless. In fact, she is about to knock the tar out of this giant. She's powerful. She's positioned much more effectively in battle terms. And then the other PCs you see down here, you know, they're in a much better position too. What are we learning from the artwork on these two books? One of them is emphasizing that the adventurers are in a dangerous place, a place of mystery that they can't control, and they're going to have to be very careful if they want to survive and they want to succeed at the task that's before them. Otherwise, they'll end up like these idiots in the hands of an Efreet, not wearing any armor worth a damn. Meanwhile, the PHB for 5th edition is telling you this is all about empowering your players and your player characters. We really want the story to be about these individual heroes who excel and who overcome. Now, does that mean that in first edition you can't have player characters that overcome, that are these heroes? No, not at all. But here's what I'm doing. I'm reading the 5th edition books to give me ideas for how can I empower my players, how can I help their PCs have a little more longevity in a first edition setting sometimes. See, that's actually why I went back to first edition. I've been playing 4th edition for a long time. I've been playing the Star Wars RPG. And player characters never die. There was no danger. There was no fear. And so I wanted to go back to that sort of lethality that you find in first edition AD&D. So maybe you're a 5th edition player and you want some of that lethality introduced into your game. Or maybe you're a first edition DM and you want something different, more like 5th edition. Or maybe you want something totally different, like a noir setting, a horror, or something else in your D&D game. Here are my 3 tips to help you adapt whatever edition you're playing to the tone and the setting that you really want in your game. First of all, determine where your game of choice excels and where it doesn't. Just be honest with yourself. I mean, just because you really like a game doesn't mean you can say it does some things really well and some things really poorly. Uh, you probably know from forums or experience what the problems are with AD&D, but there's a lot of great things too. So be honest about where it's good, where it's not. Second, figure out what kind of campaign you want to run. If you want to run a traditional first edition AD&D game, no big deal. But if you want to do something different, be mindful of that. There are a lot of things that they did not expect would happen in a D&D setting when they wrote this book. So determine what your edition is good at and what it isn't. Decide what kind of campaign you want to run, what tone. And then third, and this is really the key, is read books from other systems, maybe other editions of D&D or maybe other game systems altogether that present the kind of campaign you want to have, and then adapt your game to those other books. You don't have to import loads of rules, but you can just get ideas from reading books from other systems and other editions that will help you to present the tone and setting that you want to in your game. Otherwise, if you don't do that, if you don't kind of cross-pollinate in the things that you're reading, a lot of the time you're going to feel like you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. You're just not going to get the tone that you want in your game. But you start reading these other books, you start getting some ideas, you can create just a few little house rules that will help you adapt your D&D setting to the tone of game that you want to present. You know, I think this is really what Eberron was all about when it first came out. They were kind of sick of magic ruling the day, and they wanted something a little more raw, a little more visceral, even maybe a little bit steampunky at times. And so they created this whole other set of campaign rules so that you could have a different tone. You can do the same thing. You don't have to buy a book to know how to do it. You can come up with some good house rules yourself based upon these other books that you're reading. So here's my challenge to you. I got a short term and I've got a long term. First, in the short term, think about the next campaign that you want to run. And think about how the tone of it and the setting, how you want it to be different from the one that you're running right now. We're talking about in terms of feeling and sensation that the players are going to be experiencing. Do you want your players afraid for their PCs, or do you want them feeling empowered for their PCs? Either of them is fine. I'm actually enjoying this one for a change. It's kind of fun. But what I'm learning now is, as player characters are dying, they're getting used to them dying, and the fear is wearing off. So we're going to have to diversify once more. So think about your next campaign. Think about the feelings and experiences you want your players to have. But long term, get onto our Facebook page and let's start talking about this in our groups. There are a lot of people that are connected there who are more experienced even than I am in terms of different systems. So if you're looking for a certain kind of tone, a certain kind of setting, they can point you in the right direction.